There won't be natural gas delivered to my house to be able to use them. So I will have to replace that. So that's going to be on me. And the building owners have to replace all of it. Like they're just being told it's on you. But what I love is the state is saying this is not a ban. It's not a ban. But I got to tell you, state of Colorado, if it walks like a ban and talks like a ban and costs like a ban, it's a ban.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of PowerGab, your go-to show for all things energy and environmental policy in the state of Colorado. I'm Jake Fogleman, joined as always by my co-host Amy Cooke. For this week's show, just briefly at the top of the show, actually, we wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on the story we talked about last episode, the ongoing saga and the actually escalating fight between Xcel Energy and the folks out in Elbert County and El Paso County. We talked about Xcel trying as hard as it possibly can to basically run roughshod over those folks and pull out all the stops to make sure that there's no due process and they can just get what they want right away. And we talked about the decisions that'll be up to the PUC as to whether or not Xcel can get away with something like that. There's actually been a little bit of an update on that front and in terms of the PUC proceeding. Amy, if you want to let folks know what's changed in that.
Yeah, and just so listeners and viewers know, we always tape on Thursdays. So that means that the Public Utilities Commission had a hearing the day before because their hearings are on Wednesdays. Their meetings are on Wednesdays. So there was just one little quick agenda item, which I tuned into, and it was an intervener. A group wanted to intervene, and this is a little late in the proceeding to intervene. This is not, most of the time you are required to intervene at the beginning of a proceeding, but this is a little bit later in the proceeding, and you all know that Elbert County denied a permit to Xcel Energy, and so did El Paso County. Well, one of the new interveners, somebody who petitioned to intervene, and just so that you all know, you have to intervene in any kind of a meaningful way, you must petition the Public Utilities Commission to allow you to come in. So a landowner in Elbert County who's, when you look at it, their property is right along where the power pathway, these high voltage transmission wires will be, Xcel would be condemning part of their property. And they have been there for a long time, and they petitioned to intervene. Xcel challenged that and opposed that intervention and said, Elbert County can represent all of the landowners. You don't need to allow this separate landowner to come in and be a party to this proceeding. The PUC staff came back with a recommendation that said, we think you should allow them to intervene, and it's Bar Ranch Holding. And they've got, so they're a large owner there. I'm not going to say it's thousands of acres, but it's not just 1 or 2 acres. So they are being allowed to intervene because the PUC commissioners took staff's recommendation. And now you have an individual landowner who is intervening on behalf of themselves. They have their own attorneys, so they'll have their own attorneys sitting at the table as Xcel navigates the next part of this proceeding. Now, remember, they've already asked to expedite it and to do away with any kind of public hearings or essentially keep the public out of the process. So one of these landowners has asked to come in. They've been allowed. They gave an additional, I think they extended the deadline for next filings or whatever for 2 days. So they gave them 2 days more. So instead of having, I want to say the next hearing is on the 15th, they're giving, I guess, until the 17th to get their materials in. So anyway, or actually, I think it's the deadline was the 15th. They're giving them to get everything filed. I think they're now extending that to the 17th for this new intervener in the process. So I would just tell everybody, we'll keep you updated. This is an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, certainly a fascinating development. The docket is expanding against the wishes of the monopoly utility, who hoped that this could be as smooth and as painless as possible for it and as painful as possible for everyone else. But like you said, we'll stay on top of what happens next because this issue is certainly not going away anytime soon. But speaking of lawyers and ongoing controversies, we have another little bit of an update on something I believe we talked about earlier in the year, Amy. This has to do with the lawsuit that was filed by a bunch of large building owners, the Apartment Association, NAOP, which is a bunch of industrial and commercial, it's a trade group that represents big, large buildings. They sued over both the city of Denver and the state of Colorado over Energize Denver in Denver and Regulation 28 in Colorado, which is just a statewide and a city version of essentially regulatory mandates that require these building owners to slash their CO2 emissions by a certain deadline. And I think we updated folks that got tossed at the time back in March. So this would have been a while ago. Well, now this is back in the news because those groups have since refiled a lawsuit to try to shore up some of the deficiencies. It was tossed on standing grounds. They never got to the merits of their legal arguments at the time. So the judge never issued an opinion saying one way or the other whether those folks were right, just that they hadn't provided enough evidence. Well, they're back in court providing some new evidence about some of the hardships that these building owners would go through to try to meet these deadlines. And Colorado and the city of Denver and also interveners, environmental groups that were allowed to intervene to support Colorado and the city of Denver have now filed their own individual motions to have the suit tossed again. So S&P Global has a great article writing up the situation. We'll drop that in the show notes so folks can follow along because I know it's a little bit confusing as I've laid it out. But I do think it's just indicative of the broader struggles that the Colorado economy faces, business owners faces, building owners face, trying to meet the state's, as you like to call it, forced march towards electrification.
Yeah, this is actually really interesting, Jake, because there are so many ripple effects to this. We've talked a little bit about the difficulties of just getting buildings. I mean, there are high vacancies in downtown Denver right now. And full disclosure, my husband and I own a property in a historic building in downtown Denver. And I gotta tell you, we have tried to sell it. We can't sell it. And I'll tell you, the other thing is it's at this point hard to even make it rentable because the costs continue to escalate with that. And the other thing is it's just honestly entering into a tenant landlord relationship is so unappealing in this state. So this just adds on another layer. So one of the things we wanted to do is sort of explain how these building performance standards, meaning that these large buildings must cut their emissions, their carbon emissions. Who's doing what, and how does that interact or interplay with what we've talked about a bunch of times, which is the clean heat plan. So in Denver, you have Energize Denver, which sets building level performance targets. Now, they also allow sort of timeline extensions and custom target adjustments. Apparently, that's what they say, so that owners can avoid what they call premature equipment changeouts. The bottom line is you're going to be forced to switch out your equipment. You're going to have you'll be forced to switch out your HVAC systems to comply with this. Ultimately, that's where it is going. They'll tell you it's not really a ban on what you have. It's not a ban on natural gas use. We're just setting performance standards at a level that'll make it natural gas impossible to actually meet those standards. So therefore, you'll have to change it out. But it's not a ban on natural. Then statewide, you mentioned it, there's Regulation 28. So both these large buildings, apartment complexes, the apartment association, some large manufacturers that have large buildings, they're suing the city and county, or the city and state, city of Denver, state of Colorado. I can get that right, I swear. And that's really, like I said, covers large buildings. Then you have the clean heat plan, which is forcing gas utilities. Now listen to this. Gas utilities are required to cut emissions. So with Denver and the state and large buildings, they're making building owners do it. Then the clean heat plan makes utilities do it. So it seems like it would seem from that, oh, well, residential ratepayers are off the hook, right? Because we don't have to do anything. Except for what the utilities are doing is they have to change out their infrastructure. So if you're a natural gas utility, you're just not going to be there anymore. I mean, there's nothing to deliver natural gas to, because homeowners will have been forced to convert to heat pumps or something that don't require some equipment, some form of heating and cooling that don't require natural gas. Yes, you'll have stranded assets, because if you were to wait until, for instance, we just replaced our air conditioning and a unit, and one of them, and two hot water heaters. So they're all natural gas. Those will not, they're not going to give me until 2045, when they might reach the end of their useful life cycle, or 2050. They're not going to let me wait that long. There won't be natural gas delivered to my house to be able to use them. So I will have to replace that. So that's going to be on me. And the building owners have to replace all of it. Like they're just being told it's on you. But what I love is the state is saying this is not a ban. It's not a ban. But I got to tell you, state of Colorado, if it walks like a ban and talks like a ban and costs like a ban, it's a ban. And the interesting thing about what the apartment association and some of these large building owners are doing is suing the state and suing suing the city of Denver, because it's more of a direct impact. For homeowners under the clean heat plan, it's going to be a little while, right? So we haven't felt those yet. These large owners of large buildings and the apartment associations are starting to feel that, because they're actually already speccing out what this is going to cost them. And they're saying, well, you get an extension, or we can customize it a little bit. But the point is, it is a forced march to electrification. And here's the thing, and I think we talked about this on a show, the city of Berkeley outright banned natural gas appliances, and it was struck down. And so what Colorado is trying to say is, it's not really a ban. We've just got these performance standards you have to meet, but it's not really a ban. So this is going to end in a lawsuit one way or the other, and it's going to drag out for years. We have become such a litigious state because of bad policy. So we wanted to try and I hope that it's probably about as clear as mud.
Yeah.
When you talk about there are three policy buckets. There's the Energize Denver, there's the state regulation 28, and then there's the clean heat plan. And you said it best. It's like this pincer thing, but everybody's being forced into it.
Yep.
One way or the other, you're forced into it.
And the thing that's most insidious about that, you're right, because of deliberate decisions policymakers at every level of government have made, they've set up this perfect pincer movement where the clean heat plan is trying to squeeze electrification out of the utility side. Building performance standards in Denver and the state are trying to squeeze them on the commercial end user side. You have local governments sort of nudged along by the state government as well, passing local green building codes so that new homes have to be built already pre-electrified. So you're getting the residential end users squeezed as well. And all of this is done behind opaque, either regulatory proceedings in the case of the PUC, or city council, the state legislature passes a bill laying out broad goals, but then kicks it to the Air Quality Control Commission to come up with what ends up becoming Regulation 28. And it's why I almost admire what Berkeley did a little bit more, because they came right out and said, hey, we're going to ban natural gas and you can vote us out if you don't like that, or vote for us if you do like that. Whereas the Colorado way is mealy mouthed. No, it's not a ban. We're just going to set these emissions reductions targets that, just so happen to be completely incompatible with future natural gas use. And it's also hidden. It's this regulatory sleight of hand from unelected people doing these sorts of regulations that you can't easily follow unless you're a nerd like us that can kind of parse through the regulatory speak. When at the end of the day, this is, as you said, a really big deal for building owners or ratepayers and folks that are staring down the barrel of serious costs to do away with a fuel that they've come to rely on and may enjoy and may prefer to use, quite frankly, but are being told that they can't because of these secret regulatory, schemes.
There's something else that's going on in the PUC. So, too, who gets credit for instance, these building code compliance? Let's say you are a building that you've built something new, and it's totally electrified, right? So you have no natural gas. So you're in complete compliance because you built it new with the anticipation of what was of these codes coming. Now, utilities want credit for that in their carbon reduction, but you have commercial users going, oh no, 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 we get credit for it because we're the ones who did it. And what, for instance, the Colorado Energy Office and Air Quality Control Commission are super worried about is that there is going to be double counting. God forbid that we let, oh my gosh, the utility's taking credit for it, and therefore they're getting credit for carbon reduction and letting something slide through the cracks. So they're right now at the PUC, part of those proceedings what's involved in that is who gets credit for it. And utilities, of course, want credit for it, but the air quality control and CEO are saying no, because you didn't do it. You actually need to perform the emissions reduction. In other words, force your customers into it. You don't get to count a commercial building that built it that way. So they're very worried about double counting. Now, what does this mean to all of us? Well, you know what? Your electric bill's hard enough to read as it is. If anybody has seen it recently, you've got probably a dozen different writers. And listen, I'll tell you what, if anybody knows what all those writers are, we should have them on the show. Come on, talk about it. We'd love to have you educate everybody else about it, because they're not easy just trying to understand that. So that's one, that just your utility bill is going to get more difficult to read. One. Two, there's going to be massive load shifting from natural gas now onto the electrification side. And when that happens, we're going to go from a summer peaking system where, listen, when you have a blackout in the summer, remember we get those notifications from Xcel in the summer, and it's August and it's a hot day, and the wind isn't blowing and there isn't enough sunshine and the batteries are drained, and they say, cut back on your use. We get those in summer so you can, turn your air conditioner up to 85. Well, when it happens in winter, and they tell you have to drop your temperature down to 59 degrees in your house or something, when we are electrifying everything, that load shift to the electric side means we are no longer summer peaking, we're winter peaking, which means the largest part of our demand comes in the winter. And the other thing is, the legal headwinds on this are just enormous. As we are being forced into this, the one thing I hope is that we do get a preliminary injunction on this eventually. And this is not going into compliance.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a lawsuit on it, mark my words, I'll be looking for one.
Well, that's what makes the building owners lawsuit in particular so fascinating to watch how that plays out. Uh, Ed Sealover over at the Sum and the Substance about a month or two ago wrote up a good article kind of explaining the dilemma they find themselves in currently. This was before the city and the state tried to have their suit tossed again. So we'll see what happens there. But basically, these building owners are now looking at the first leg of the compliance deadline for both Energize Denver and Reg 28 is 2030. That's just a tad over 4 years away. And these folks are stuck in the position of either hoping that this lawsuit succeeds and then they don't have to be out a bunch of money, or getting ahead of it and preemptively spending millions, if not billions of dollars cumulatively to meet these requirements on the understanding that maybe a Denver judge just decides, I don't think it's preempted. Go ahead and let this fly. And so, I mean, this is causing real economic harm. You mentioned the vacancy rate in Denver already being a real problem. So there's serious headwinds. There are serious headwinds at play here that really all are riding on the outcomes of these lawsuits, or, less likely, a sudden change of heart on behalf of Colorado policymakers hoping to give some folks relief. A man can wish, but I doubt that'll happen.
Yeah. So where we have our property, it's a historic building that just, there's no way to retrofit it.
Yeah.
It's just it's impossible. I got to tell you, at that point, it might even be worth just tear the thing down.
Just demo, yeah.
And just demo it and turn it into a parking lot. But of course, we don't encourage parking down there, so
Yeah.
that isn't really a thing. I can't begin to explain, and I try to tell this to friends too. And this is part of what friends in other states, I should say, is what I try to explain it to, and they just can't wrap their mind around it because Colorado there's no real exit ramp on this. You have to comply, and the only way there's a utility and building owner can't comply by buying RECs and simply just having it be more expensive. You physically have to comply.
Right.
And that's different than what is going on in a lot of other areas. That's a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic point. It's not as simple as just, like you said, buying a green credit or something. It's no, you building owner who's already struggling with rising property taxes, high cost of living, probably a high vacancy rate in your tenancy, but now you have to also invest millions of dollars ripping out your HVAC and putting in electrified appliances or what have you, and then hope that suddenly the broader macroeconomic climate turns around and then you can pay for those investments you just made when you're already barely holding your head above water. That's, I hate to say it, but that's kind of where we're at, especially in the city of Denver. So,
and your property is not worth what it was when you bought it.
That's right. No, we've already seen big buildings in Denver going for haircuts just because of the situation right now. So,
and then let's throw in a little crime, little carjacking, the fear of walking in downtown Denver at night. This is the lack of economic awareness from the city, from the governor, from the PUC collectively is pretty staggering at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the late Charles Krauthammer always said, decline is a choice, and our policymakers are certainly choosing the road we're on.
Yep.
But as we're coming up on time here, Amy, do you have any takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah, if it walks like a ban and talks like a ban, it's a ban. So we're banning natural gas usage in the state of Colorado. Make no mistake, that's exactly what's happening. So number one, to your point, this is by policy choice. Ask when lawmakers or when any elected official, because right now we have municipal elections going on, when any elected official or candidate comes to your door, knocking on your door, ask them about it. Ask them what they know. Ask them which way they would vote, and then ask them if they understand their electric bill. I want to know. So that would be another one. And then last one is you're not going to be able to afford your utility bill. So get a generator, for sure, get a generator, do your own backup, firm your own grid. You're going to have to, because no elected official is doing it for you. And while we're on it, we want to help someone else firm their grid. We want to give away a generator around Christmas time. So you have an extra one, you want to donate, somebody who might want to donate, contribute, spread the warmth at holiday time during Christmas. Please let us know. You can contact us. Jake has all that information.
That's right. Yeah. If you've got a lead on that or you want to donate yourself, send that our way at info@powergab.org. That's also where folks can send us guest suggestions or topics that they'd like to see us cover here on the show. We always love hearing from our listeners. Folks just tuning in, you can head over to powergab.org to check out our entire back catalog. We produce new episodes every single week. And we're also available wherever you get your audio-only shows, whether that's Spotify or Apple. But until next week, we'll see you.